career choice by Ginger Lewis. Any of you ever played polo?
Not yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, right.
I was just saying Kenny Jones from The Who plays polo.
So
it's mainly to do with whether you can afford to play polo.
So I just asked Ralph and Steve that there was this thing about Ginger saying that he was a true jazz player, but there were these other big rock drummers who weren't in the same league. But he didn't actually play that much jazz. So, was he really a jazz player, or was he a rock player? What's the deal there?
Define jazz. No, I say that. Someone like Art Blakey, it's difficult. I mean, I think Ginger playing was fantastic. It's a shame there wasn't more of his playing, but as I just said to Ralph, a little bit clunky, particularly with the double bass drums going away. But that's his sound. It was something very special. And he got that double triplet thing. We talked about triplets earlier, the threes, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 12, 8 type of thing. He made something very special, and he had an attack and a purpose that you don't normally find in jazz. Jazz in Britain is very polite. I don't think you'd ever have had an Elvin Jones playing as loud as he did if he was coming from England. It's a polite, you sit at the back. Can you play brushes? Or as someone said to me once when I was playing at Gaz Mayall's club, Gaz's Rocking Blues, can't you play like Charlie Watts? Which is, don't be so busy.
Drummers always sit at the back. That's what we were happy to do tonight.
That's why we always play so loud.
So,
not in my bands, by the way. I always play in the middle at the front.
So I think I'm still interested to maybe hear a bit more about this difference between the jazz style and the rock style. So I don't know if we can get one of you to do
something Ralph
jazz.
said earlier about the triplets and eights. Triplets, if you play triplets on a 4-piece drum set, or if you play triplets, you've got to really work on both hands. Because if you go 1, 2, 3, when you start on the second beat, you've got to start with your weak hand, or the vice versa. And if you think with rock music, when a lot of rock music came in the 60s, suddenly, like here, you had snare drum and 3 tom-toms. It's much easier to get around the kit if you're playing eights, if you've got 4 drums. Because if you've got 3 drums to get around, anyway, I'm getting, it's just a lot easier. Would you agree, Ralph?
Yeah, when you've got more surfaces to play, you can just move around them and then just keep the patterns moving, because a lot of what Ginger was doing, back to that triplet, he was just doing repetitive triplet patterns, and because he's actually got a few toms going on, he can just put those patterns around the drums and the cymbals. It's quite easy to do, and it means you can improvise, so it's a nice thing. We could do something like that. Should we play something like that?
It was funny, I mentioned to Ralph earlier, there was a lovely programme on the World Service Radio about a year or so ago, and they had a trailer for it that went on for they played it for 2 months. It's all about the clave beat, and it's coming out of Africa and then its effect all over the world in all different music. So there's not various forms, but there's people play it in various ways. And the classic one you'd say is Bo Diddley. If you listen to a Bo Diddley song, that's the clave beat. Boom, 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 boom. And that runs through it all the way. In Ginger's music, you can hear it all the time. It's a shame we haven't got 2 bass drums here, because then we could get into a bit more Ginger.
It's funny, I was just thinking about that. Like what we were saying about African music, but he is one of the very few musicians that is certainly what I would consider a rock and roll musician who actually completely embraced African music, which I think is one of the things that made him really, really interesting, because he had something completely different. So I would say he was more of an African style drummer than a jazz drummer in his style. Because he's, to be honest with you, most people that I speak to who have known Ginger and knew Ginger back then said, oh no, he actually wasn't a jazz drummer. But he kind of had what he took, I think, mostly was like a improvising jazz sensibility, and he put that in rock and roll. And I think it sounded fantastic, that sort of panache, the way he hit the drums. But there were a few guys who did that. I thought it was a bit ungracious of him to slag off John Bonham. Yeah, well, But
insider.
Yeah, but I mean, they like the English guys like Ginger, John Bonham, and also Mitch Mitchell particularly.
Yeah.
Those guys like Mitch Mitchell really did come from. They all had jazz in them, but they just applied it to rock and roll, and it was fantastic.
But that's
really
probably what they grew
exciting.
up with. I think that's the big difference. I think with Bonham, I mean, John Bonham learned a lot of his stuff from Rick Lee from 10 Years After, and that was the triplets thing. And the joke around is that rock drummers find it very hard to play like John Bonham. Jazz drummers find it quite easy because it's about triplets. And if you analyse what Bonham's doing, it's not very difficult, it's just the power and the kind of precision he's got. It's fantastic. But then he's working also with two brilliant musicians in John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page. So we were sort of mentioning earlier, Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones were sort of two top session players in the mid-60s. You look at Keith Moon all over the place. I kind of tend to agree with Pete Townsend that he wasn't a very good drummer. I loved him as a kid, and I met him once backstage after the Who did a gig in Oxford. Very lovely man. But he's all over the place. But he had two rocks either side of him. John Entwistle, a fantastic musician, and Pete Townsend, a fantastic musician. So he could do what the fuck he wanted, you know, and he did. But the same with Ginger. They used a lot of surfaces. Wasn't just a backbeat on the 2 and the 4 all the way through. And that's something I like very much, particularly with Ginger. It's that tribal type of thing. If you listen to, as he talks about listening with Phil Seaman to the Watusi drummers, it must have been quite strange in the sort of 60s, smacked out on heroin in sort of, you know, grim London, being heated by coal and whatever, you know, damp and smelly gas and whatever, and then you're stoned out of your head on NHS heroin, because you used to be able to get it off the NHS in those days, which is why so many of the jazz musicians were junkies. And, you know, listening to this, and it's quite remarkable what Phil Seaman managed to sort of appropriate from that, you know.
Should we...
Oh, we have to sort of
shut up.
Yeah.
Can we compare then the more jazz style, the more even the Bonham style to the Ginger Baker style? Is that something you could give us a taste of?
That's tough.
Got this jazz?
Well, we touched on that jazz thing earlier, didn't we? It's kind of like, you know, the swing, the bass drum, but then the bebop thing. But James Brown had a very nice way of recording, actually. He used to record the drums, put the horns on the top, and then strip the backing track off the drums, and then allow the drums to play over the fixed recording of all the horns, so then the drums sounded fresher. It's a very nice way. But that clave beat can be heard in James Brown stuff as well, or the Cascara rhythms, the Ralph Salmins, with the rhythm you put on the top of the you think of that Bo Diddley thing, which is a studios. You used to get a very live sound on drums, and then if you're in a studio like this, it's a bit more dead, so you're using mics to give it a sound. Whereas I think a lot of people, they treasure buying like a vintage drum set because it's got that classic sound. Well, yeah, because they're built to sound acoustically. Ginger, I think, early days with Cream, he had, what was it, Jack Bruce had four 4x12 cabinets, same as Eric Clapton, and Ginger Baker had no microphones. And the musician I played with used to support Cream in the 60s. I used to carry Ginger off his stool in the sofa afterwards. And it's obviously maybe heroin as well. You did feel from it. He does claim that Jack Bruce's volume kind of messed his hearing up. So
Absolutely. He came up to my studio last year, and I pretty much, they said to me, oh, he just wants to do some recording, and I was just saying to the guys that his drum tech set his drums up in the room, and I thought, oh, that's great. It was that green kit that he played at the Albert Hall at the end of the film, and I thought, oh, I've got to have a listen to this. And I played the drum set, and it sounded fucking terrible. It was horrible. It really was. Anyway, then the next day, Ginger came in and he sat down on it, and as soon as he played it, it was absolutely exquisite. It was fantastic. It was really nice. And he got out of the car, and he just got back. I think he'd just come to the UK from South Africa. And he got out the car in my drive, and I said, oh, hi Ginger, I'm Ralph. How are you doing? And he goes, fucking terrible. Those were his opening lines. It's quite funny. And he was really compliant, but he's actually pretty much, he's very, very, he's so hard of hearing now he can hardly hear. So the headphones were absolutely like bleeding level. And I had to kind of cue him in for stuff. But he was a good character. I managed to charm him by bringing him a set of his favourite drummer, Phil Seaman's hi-hats, which I'm very lucky to own. And as soon as I put those in his hand, he was just like a little puppy dog. It was amazing. I thought he was going to thump me, but he didn't. He was just lovely, and he signed them for me. It was great. It was really charming. But anyway, there we go. It's my little Ginger story. I was going to play like a couple of triplet things. Maybe if I play like a triplet thing, you could do something on the floor, Tom, or something. We'd do something together, might be nice. Could we do something together? Why not?
Yeah.